This is the 93rd minute, still going, Vinicius.
Very much so. Real Madrid 5, Borussia Dortmund 2 then is how it finished. For more on this, Stewart Robson joins us. Robbo, we watch a lot of rubbish in our lives. That was certainly not it.
It certainly wasn't. I mean, Real Madrid, as you said, for the first 30 minutes, whether it was arrogance, overconfidence, played at a slow tempo, both with and without the ball. They didn't close it down. There was too many spaces in between their players and their lines for Borussia Dortmund to play. They didn't play particularly well with the ball. We saw nothing of Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe for that first 30 minutes. And amazingly, as soon as they went 2-0 down, they started to come out and play. They played at a higher tempo. You saw Vinicius Jr. do what he does so well, run at people. There was better link-up play. The midfield played higher up the field, got their challenges in. And Dortmund, for some strange reason, when they were 2-0 up, decided that they would take one of their wide players off, who was counter-attacking quite well, Gittins, and put on another centre-half and make it a back three and just encourage Real Madrid to get onto them. And from that moment on, there was only going to be one winner, even though Courtois had to make that save.
That was a worrying first half, though, for Real Madrid.
But that's it. That's
bearing in mind there's a
Clásico
Clásico on Saturday, and for those that watched the weekend, Celta Vigo caused them a lot of problems in Vigo. Open game. Vigo, I think they created like 12 chances or had 12 shots, some really good shots, really open. Lots of space in behind the Real Madrid defence, and we saw that in the first half. And I was watching it thinking, I'm worried about this for Real Madrid. I'm worried for this game at the weekend if they play like this. And in the second half, I started worrying for Barcelona. Because
got a lot of worries, Craig.
My life is full of worries. That was sensational in the second half. I mean, you could argue, people, Mbappe, the big signing, he's just stepping up to the plate, isn't he? Again, Vinicius Jr. and saying, hey, everybody's talking about Mbappe and these other players. I can be the guy. It was incredible, but that clip we showed there, I think summed Dortmund up. Emre Can chasing back, didn't have the pace, but gave up. Right. He was off the bench, he gave up, right? And if he didn't give up, then he wouldn't have caught Vinicius Jr., but when Vinicius Jr. cut inside on his right foot, his favoured foot, to score that goal, Can was only 3 or 4 yards off him. So he couldn't even be bothered to try and get back in. That's how embarrassing the second half was. Dortmund were terrific for 45 minutes, and they just were terrible in the second. But the football Real Madrid played, the control, the side-to-side passing, the really stretching Borussia Dortmund, crossing into the box, absolutely sensational. They play like that at the weekend, they will win the Clásico. But if they play like they played in the first half, clearly it could go the other way. But that was the best half of football I've seen from Real Madrid this season by a long way.
Robbo used the word complacency. Is it that simple? That they just went into the game thinking they could turn up and get it done, and it was only when they went 2-0 down that suddenly we put in that performance that Craig's talking about?
Well, if it was a one-off, if it was the one time, a singular event in which we see Real Madrid playing like this, then you say, well, these things happen. But it happens very often, and it certainly has happened very often early on in the season. And the question about Real Madrid, you see the potential. And we've been asked this question in extra time and time again. I mean, it's getting to the point to where it's actually boring to have to answer the same question. But the potential of the front three of Real Madrid as compared to Barcelona, which one has the best front three? When they play like this, when VINI is like this, when Mbappe is active, when Rodrigo is active, as they were in the second half, there's no stopping them. If I may for a second.
That was the closing.
It was you know what really impressed me, though, is at the moment, is like, he really is selling these sort of, when you think, right, he's going to go on his right foot, his stronger foot, and he is quite comfortable just to flick it back and a change of pace. It's fantastic to watch.
If I may for a second on VINI, because we're going to focus on the hat-trick. And this is how funny this game is. When Borussia Dortmund created a chance at 2-2, it comes from VINI Jr. trying to make a player.
Right.
Unnecessarily so and irresponsibly so in the middle of midfield, and now Dortmund go on the attack. If they score that goal and it changes the narrative of the game, we're having a different conversation about VINI Jr. That goal did not happen. Thibaut Courtois comes up with the save. And of course, then we see the magic and we focus on the magic, as we should with VINI Jr. But that is the two sides. The frustrating part of VINI Jr. and then the magical side of VINI Jr. Let's focus on the magical side because it serves a purpose for Real Madrid. But let me just say, it's important for this team to have accountability if they're going to achieve the things that they want to achieve. And part of that accountability has to be players like Vinny Jr. He shows some accountability in doing the work in the attacking half.
We're saving you for the Juventus game. Just before you pipe in, Jack, I just want to say we talked, have a chill out. We talked at the weekend again about Jude Bellingham, right? He wasn't on the score sheet tonight, right? Again, which has to be a frustration for him internally. But as Ali said, when you're looking at the whole of the performance, the timing of his runs, or the ball falling to him isn't there at the moment like it was last year. But that goal, the Vinicius goal, that's him in left back.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's him back there, I can't remember how the whole thing is involved, but he's in that left back position, winning the ball for his team. He's so there are other facets to his game. It's just that the goal scoring, the sort of headlines, he's not getting those at the moment, but there are other facets of his game that he's doing well.
One of the great things about this game is just how organic everything was in that set. Once Rudiger scored and the Bernabeu is on its feet and Vinicius Jr. is gearing everyone up, there's nothing quite like that.
Absolutely, and I thought that was the best of Real Madrid that you saw in the second half, in every respect, in terms of the atmosphere, the stadium, and their play. I have to say, though, and we've been saying this about Borussia Dortmund, it feels like for the last 2 or 3 years, this is a team that just does not know how to win big games, even when they haven't won. They're 2 up, and they just looked panicked, even in the lead. That moment where Real Madrid hit the woodwork twice in succession, and then the good save, and then all of a sudden we've got to make changes because Real Madrid are coming at us, and once they concede the first, everything just capitulates from there. To Real Madrid's credit, though, especially at home, they sense that. They sense the blood in the water. And they took full advantage of a desperately unnerving Borussia Dortmund and just ran away with it. And you saw the best of who Real Madrid can be. The issue for me is, again, that first 35, Real Madrid were just that poor. Anybody else just able to kind of hold their nerve a little bit better. Even if they concede a couple of chances, we have to see how Real Madrid responds. Borussia Dortmund just allowed them back in the game by their own self-uncertainty.
They've got 4 days to teach Lucas Vazquez how to mark at the back post when the ball's coming in.
Yes, we've seen that, as you say, in the Vigo game as
well.
you
look at his defending in the Vigo game, Celta Vigo game, which was actually worse than this, because he should have saw that even earlier. But he's just not a natural. And Dani Carvajal, who is one of the best that's played the game in that position, either sees it or he blocks the runner.
Yeah.
One of the two. I think just from an attacking perspective, you have a player who, it's not his instinct. But it has to be his instinct, because at the weekend it's probably going to be Rafinha coming at the back post or Lamine Yamal. It's probably Rafinha on that side. So he's going to have to defend that area. His goal was fantastic, of course it was. But ultimately he's in there as a full back. And again, we saw just his body position was wrong and he didn't know what was behind him, and that's just a consequence of not having a natural full-back in there, but it's one that you could pay heavily for in a very tight game.
Robbo, Nuri Sahin, of course, a new manager to Dortmund, taking over this. Did he panic? Because when Gittins gets taken off, it changed the whole complexion of the tactical setup, which seems to be working well.
Yeah, you can understand why he made a substitution, but I think he made the wrong substitution, because in the start of the second half, you could tell that Real Madrid were on top and he wanted to change the course of the game. Even though they were 2-0 up, he didn't want them to get that first goal. But to make the change he did, because they had Mbappe up front by himself, there was Rodrigo on the right-hand side, Vinny Jr. on the left-hand side, so he put another centre-half in. So they had 3 centre-halves against Mbappe. So then Real Madrid can have complete control of the midfield. They can then get their fullbacks higher up the pitch. I think he made a massive blunder. And then it thwarted Borussia Dortmund on the counter-attack, because if they're posing a threat, there's always that worry to Real Madrid. But there wasn't a threat for 20-25 minutes at the start of the second half, and it was all Real Madrid. He made a bad decision by going to a back 3 when really there wasn't that many players to mark in there.
You cannot expect or pretend to go into Santiago Bernabeu and beat Real Madrid by being afraid. And that substitution by Nuri Sahin was conservative in nature, but it was also a panicky substitution, was being afraid. And knowing also, and to be fair to Nuri Sahin, knowing as well that the players that he's working with at Borussia Dortmund are very soft.
Right.
Soft, soft. They lack character. They lack toughness. I see it every weekend in Bundesliga, and I have this conversation time and I mean time again. A team that will show good things and will show good aspects of the game and will show moments like they had in the first half, but are unable to sustain it. But when things get tough, this group usually breaks, usually fractures, and usually you see some of the plays that we saw in the second half. We see Emre Can not giving the effort that he should be given. We see the mistakes through the midfield and the turnovers because nobody wants to show for the ball. Everybody's hiding. We see Nico Schlotterbeck turning the ball over and Valdemar Anton unable to defend. Julian Brandt completely disappears. This happens regularly with Borussia Dortmund. Such was the surprise that they made it to Champions League final last season because it went against everything that we've come to learn and understand about Borussia Dortmund. And I think Nuri Sahin is getting to the point to where he's getting to understand the group of players that he's with. And man, this is not a group of players that you can trust to get out of Santiago Bernabeu by being afraid.
What does this mean for Saturday, Shaka?
It means that Real Madrid going to
No, Borussia Dortmund got a big... No, I'm joking.
Real Madrid going to the Clásico all of a sudden with momentum that could have looked very different.
Yeah.
Given the first half hour of this game at the Bernabeu as well. I think that it makes a huge significance again, given that atmosphere. And all of a sudden, whereas 24 hours ago you asked who were favourites going into that one, and we kind of hummed and hawed about that. I think all of a sudden Real Madrid are going into that, well, certainly with more momentum. They have to fix the problems that you saw in the first half hour. I don't think you give Barcelona a 2-goal lead and expect
exactly
a similar response. But it means they're in a better condition than, as I say, I would have thought 24 hours ago.
It's a very easy video analysis for Ancelotti this week, isn't it? You know, the first half and the second half.
Yes,
I mean, like the mistakes and the openness and the the chances they've given up and the spaces between the defenders and the midfield, and in the second half of total control. And maybe, as the guys have said, some of it was down to Dortmund, but I think that would be taking a lot away from what we saw from these players, Real Madrid players, in the second half. So, look, Barca are a good side, the top of the league. They've scored a lot of goals, but they have quite a lot of youngsters in their side, and they're going into the Bernabeu. And these bigwigs, these superstars, they've just basically rolled their sleeves up and trampled all over the top of this Dortmund team, which is not the most difficult thing to do because of what Ali said. But if you want something to boost you going into the weekend, how about 5 goals in the second half at home? It was just fantastic.
And in that video analysis, as simple as it may be, it's beyond tactics if you're Ancelotti. It's beyond, hey, if we play with this many defenders and this many midfielders, or if it's a front 3, is it a front 2? No. Just getting tight to the ball and being able to defend together and the lines being together and intensity and urgency. What I saw from Real Madrid today in the second half, in terms of the difference to the first half, is the tempo with which they play the game. Not just with the ball, but without the ball as well. Being able to run around and press and get numbers around the ball and force turnovers. And now Dortmund starts feeling it because they're all over us and we can't find space, and it feels like there is nothing for you to do other than turn the ball over and have to defend and defend and defend again. Real Madrid are able to do that, and they have it in their game to do that. They just pick and choose when to do it. Man, if El Clásico doesn't bring that out of you at Santiago Bernabeu, I don't know what else does.